This is James Lupton, the Sloth Box, sponsored by the Excelsior Sporting Club. And I'm joined once again with Amer Abdallah. Amir, how are you?
I'm well, James. How are you?
Very good. Thank you. Very good. And thank you again for joining me today.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me on.
No worries at all. It doesn't feel like it was too long ago we spoke, but so much has happened in such a short space of time. First of all, I want to start off with something that Eddie Hearn mentioned recently. And he
Sure.
hinted at a offer had been made for Anthony Joshua versus Deontay Wilder. It sounds like it's a first step to more sort of concrete talks. Can you sort of go into that a little bit?
Um, the the fight of AJ Wilder, undisputed Usyk Fury, have absolute interest from Prince Khalid and Skill Challenge Promotions. We've talked to all of the parties that are involved. We've talked to all of the fighters, of course, through their managers and their promoters, and everybody seems to have given us the green light. Have there been any financial offers? Have there been any offer letters? The answer is no. But Eddie was in the kingdom, and him and Prince Khalid have a great personal relationship. And I'm sure that there was discussions that about the fight, but an actual offer, a monetary number, that the answer is no, they haven't been. And then when there is, rest assured, Skill Challenge Promotions will release that officially from us in a press release, and we'll go from there.
Do you feel that stage of the talks is far away?
No, not at all. Not at all. Look, here's what you got to remember, James. That we're talking about 6 month increments of how these fights are going to be built. So you have right now you've got Usyk, who's got to make a mandatory, the WBA mandatory against Dubois. That looks like it's going to be August. Tyson Fury is looking for a fight, August, September. Deontay is looking for a fight, August, September. AJ is looking for a fight. So these guys still have possibly one fight that they have to get through, each of them, to get to December. So the question becomes, what happens if one of them get injured? What happens if one of them take a loss? So to make an offer now would be premature. I believe that the offers come at the end of summer, early fall, once these guys kind of get past where they are. Usyk will be past Dubois. You'll have a good idea of what the Furies, the AJs, Deontay's are going to do at that point. And then you can make it. Is it close? Of course it's close. Prince Khalid has stated that he's interested in the fight. He certainly has the resources to be able to do it. I don't think that it's going to be a difficult negotiation or offer once we get to that stage. But at this point, nothing has been put out other than the interest in having the fights. And there is genuine interest.
You mentioned injuries. That can't be helped. That's something that can't be dodged if it happens. However, a
Right.
loss, could a loss jeopardize one of these guys getting these fights in December?
That's not my call. That would have to be, His Highness Prince Khalid's call. And I think that you take it on a case by case basis. But look, you have like the AJ Wilder fight, and I've said this in previous interviews. That fight, to many people that I've talked to, is bigger and more attractive than the Usyk Fury fight, even though Usyk Fury has more significance as an undisputed fight and crowning the first undisputed champion for the past 20 plus years since Lennox Lewis. So I think that you have to really factor in a lot of different issues and factors going into that. I think AJ Wilder is still regardless of what happens, like God forbid AJ takes a loss or Wilder takes a loss, I think that fight is still a very appealing fight. But to answer your question specifically, James, that's a Prince Khalid call, and I can give my 2 cents about it. But in the end, it'll be decisively his decision.
Let's talk about Alexander Usyk and the signing of him. We believe it's a multi-fight deal. First of all, a fantastic signing for Skill Challenge Promotions. How did that come about in terms of actually signing him to a multi-fight deal? Because it's come out of the blue, really.
Yeah, thank you. And especially at when he's a unified heavyweight champion, to bring on another promoter, it's very very rare to see that. I don't want to use the word unprecedented, because I use that word all the time, but it really is. I mean, you're talking about a guy that is already there. He's an elite guy. But I think that alludes to, and it sheds light on, how big of plans we have for him, Prince Khalid has for him, and what the future holds for him. And I think it also shows how much trust Aegis, Alex, and Alexander have in Skill Challenge and Prince Khalid to be able to deliver on those things. As far as the talks go, the talks started last month. I mean, it was, I'm telling you, it was 1 or 2 phone calls, quick phone calls where everybody got aligned. And, you know, we've dealt with Alexander for the previous Joshua fight. Those guys are just high class, first class guys. I'm telling you, there's very few, I shouldn't say very few. There's a handful of people in boxing that you can make handshake deals with. Egis, Alex, Alexander are those guys. So it was a very easy, seamless process. Prince Khalid loves the fact that aside from his boxing accolades and credentials, that he's a good man. He's a man of high integrity, high character, strong moral background. So that's very important to Prince Khalid. And that to him is probably, I should say probably, it is more important than the actual fight themselves and the fight background himself and the resume. Easy to happen. It happened, what are we in now? June? I think April, May is when we started first having the discussions. And it was quick. And the only reason it took till June to announce it is because I had to make sure, you know, Prince Khalid's schedule was open to where we could bring Alexander into the kingdom so we could do the official signing.
Fantastic. And I mentioned it's a multi-fight deal. Can you reveal how many fights on his deal?
I'm not privy to really discuss that, and I think that it's going to be, you know, 2, 3, 4 fights. We'll see how things open up. And look, from our perspective, is, you know, we're not interested in, we don't need to lock in these guys for 3 years with options of 5 and options of 7. We don't need to do that. We're going to offer them 2 or 3 fights that we have some massive, you know, ideas for. And at the end, if you want to stay on board, you want to keep having these opportunities. And look, I'm telling you, my inbox is inundated. It's flooded with top name guys that want to sign to the promotion. So in being a part of Skill Challenge Promotions, we are going to unite the boxing world and bringing all the promoters, all of the managers, all of the networks together, so we can do something where everybody cohesively works out for them and they get everything that they want. And the fighters will be on board as long as, you know, we can keep delivering all of these fights. And, you know, we have, you know, probably 5, 6 big fights that we're in negotiations with now also. Aside from these 4 big heavyweight guys that we have.
You mentioned you're in talks for these fights. When could we see the next big fight or the next big announcement or big show from the kingdom?
We're working on something, you know, for the fall. We're working on something for the winter. We're also working on, you know, announcement that we'll be making very soon with a neighboring country that we'll be doing a co-promotion with, which will be massive. So you might start seeing 6, 8, 10 fights a year out of the region, which will be, I think, phenomenal for the sport.
Just going back to Alexander Usyk and his deal, we mentioned already he's got Daniel Dubois next mandatory fight. Is that part of your deal? Will you be working on that show as a co-promoter, or is that something that will start after the Dubois fight?
No, the Dubois fight will be our first fight in co-promotion with K2 and with Alex Trusik. You know, Egis is the manager, and of course Alexander. That'll be our first fight, which is, you know, looking at Poland. Of course, K2 has already been in negotiations with that. We will come on as a co-promoter. And then the second fight, we're hoping to land in December for Alexander in the kingdom.
Just how big a fight is this Dubois fight for Usyk? The fact that it's in Poland, you know, you're talking, what, about 40, 50 miles from Ukraine. It's almost a homecoming for him because, of course, what's going on in Ukraine, he can't fight in his home country. So this is really as close as he can get. And this is a man who's fought away from home pretty much all his professional career. How big is this for him?
Massive. No, it's massive. It's massive for him. And he's so excited about fighting there. Alexander, if you, in the time that you're around, and you just feel that genuine love of his country, of his people, of his pride, you know, his patriotism. But I think this is a very important, you know, milestone for him to be able to have a fight there and to be able to put on a fight, especially during these times, and be able to almost, you know, give them a relief of what's happening. But look, Dubois is not a walk in the park. I mean, it's not going to be a fight that you just overlook and say, hey, December's coming. Let's get ready for this as a tune-up. This is certainly not a tune-up fight. It's you know, the WBA has mandated that he fights this fight, and this is the #1 contender. So he's got to take this fight, and he's got to be able to deliver on it.
Absolutely. Moving away from the heavyweights, I want to come down to your cruiserweight champion, Badou Jack. And there's this guy you've worked with for a long, long time. You know Badou very well. And there's a lot of talk at the moment about Canelo Alvarez potentially being his next opponent and defending his world title against Canelo. who, as we all know, is a powerhouse name in boxing. How realistic is that? Is that something that you guys have spoke about? Is this one of the fights you mentioned earlier that you're in talks with?
I am in talks with him, and I'm in talks with Canelo's team. Of course, we represent Badou, and there is interest in that fight. Whether or not it comes to fruition, because there's stages and there's different terms. I think out of the 6 or 7 terms that we have on, I think we're all in agreement of 5 of them, and there might be a couple that we just need to wrap up. I hope that it's not going to be problematic, because if a guy like Canelo, who has been a phenomenal champion, a legend in the sport, an icon in boxing, arguably the face of boxing, he wants to capture a 5th division world title and come up to that weight class, you got to come up to that weight class. And listen, it's a jump for him. So I hope that we're not going to have any sticking points, but I believe in the next week we'll be able to have some decisive answers of where we are with that. But yeah, I think there's interest on everybody's part. There's certainly interest in Prince Khalid and in Skill Challenge Promotions hosting that fight in the Kingdom, and that's what we're looking at. Again, it's one of many fights that we're looking at, and we hope that we can make that fight happen.
Boxing is certainly on a high at the moment. We've mentioned some fantastic names already on this call. I want to talk about the downside and the negative side of boxing at the moment. And we had this weekend Floyd Mayweather in an exhibition against John Gotti III. John Gotti, got disqualified for foul language, trash talking during rounds, and a riot broke out and ensued in the ring. It became packed. You couldn't see the canvas no more for people in there pushing, shoving, and fighting. Are these exhibitions and also influence of boxing, is this giving a bad name to the sport now?
It's a loaded question, James, and let me try to answer it in as many different areas that I can. Is celebrity boxing, entertainment boxing, YouTube boxing, is it bad for the sport? If it's done safely, if it's done securely, if it's done with high integrity, no. The answer is no. Why? Because it brings a whole different element of eyeballs to this sport that we love. I go back and I've used the example of Badou Jack and his affiliation with KSI, who we have a great personal relationship with, and I'm a big fan of JJ's. When KSI fought Logan Paul for his first fight, Badou actually walked KSI out to the ring. As Badou started fighting Adonis Stevens and other fights, in the YouTube comments, you'd see people saying, isn't that the guy that was walking out with KSI? Like, it's a whole new set of eyes. Not is it this 2-division world champion that fought 7, 8 world champions back to back, but it was, isn't that the guy that was with KSI? So, and I told Badou, I was, see, this is the whole different element of eyeballs that are on the sport. So, in that sense, no, it's not bad, because you bring this younger demographic to the sport of boxing, as long, James, as it's done in a very safe environment. I'm a big fan of what the Sauerlands are doing with Mams Taylor and the Misfits boxing. I think it's entertainment. Look, it's not, you're not going to see world-class fighters fighting on that fight, but it is entertaining. And what happens from the opening bell? The arena's packed, because people, that demographic loves to see those kinds of fighters, and they see these guys that have all these, funny names that they're fighting on. I shouldn't say funny, different kinds of names that they use their handles or whatever it is, fighting. And that demographic loves that stuff. So that business model makes sense. What I don't like to see are the fights in the stand. I don't like to see, the fighters interacting with and fighting with people in the crowd. Certainly what happened in the Floyd fight. I don't think Floyd's happy with, what happened. I certainly can't speak on Floyd's behalf, but it's certainly not a good look for the sport. I didn't know that he got disqualified. I saw I'm looking at clips and social media postings of what happened. I didn't know he got disqualified for foul language or whatever it was, but I saw the melee. I saw the backstage. That's certainly not good for the sport. But again, it's good if it's controlled, it's safe, there's security, and it's done at a high level. But are the exhibitions good? Of course they are. And I go back and I ask the question a lot about, why is Floyd doing it? Why not? Why are we chastising this guy after he went through 50 fights and he beat 20-some world champions during his career? When he was young and in his prime, he fought everybody. I mean, look at the record of guys that he's fought. Now, during his post-fight career, he's having fun and making names. Now you want to hate the guy. Why? He gave you what you wanted during the time. Let him enjoy his retirement. And if the man during a retirement at almost 50 years old wants to get punched in the head and take that kind of risk, but he's making millions of dollars doing it, let the man do it. He's enjoying his life. Let him live his life, man. During his time, he fought the guys that he had to fight. He put on amazing fights. He was unbelievable in the pay-per-view. He redefined what the sport was, what the finances of the sport was, what the business model of the sport was. And he gave us a lot of entertainment. The problem is we don't want to let go of that. We don't want to let go of those Mayweather pay-per-view fights. So now we hate when he fights these kinds of guys. And put yourself in his shoes. He already did that. Let him go enjoy his retirement.
No, absolutely. And to be just the last question, I know we're on a bit of a time scale, so I'll let you go after this one. When it came out about the Usyk signing, there was a lot of some negativity and backlash on social media. You know how it is with social media. There's always somebody who's got something to say. And what was said was there was a name linked to Skill Challenge Promotions. I want to give you the opportunity to put it to bed almost. There's a lot of links.
James, I don't shy away from that. You can ask the name. Daniel Kinahan's the name that's been affiliated with and linked to it. And I don't shy away from any of that because there's nothing to hide. Everybody in boxing, and I say everybody, and I mean 99% of boxing, has dealt with Daniel in the past before all of these things came out. I can only talk from my personal agenda. And meeting him the first time in 2018, 2017, whenever that was, we went to Dubai, and I had to sit down and I became to know who he was, and he was tied to everybody in the sport. And once I found out, I asked him an open question. I said, do you have any involvement in any of this stuff? And he said, of course not. I've never been brought up on any of these charges. I've never been brought up on anything. So I had no reason not to believe it. Once the sanctionings all happened, of course, everybody went their own way. From what I believe, everybody, what I know, everybody, disconnected from him. All the fighters that he represented, all of the management companies. I'll tell you, Skill Challenge never had any affiliation with Daniel Kinahan. Never did, never will. Prince Khalid is adamant about making sure that the sport is done with the highest level of integrity. And I think it's criminal. I think it's slanderous. I think it's defamation when you try to link that to Skill Challenge. I saw even a report that there was a Skill Challenge London outfit made. That has nothing to do with us. As far as late last night, and here we are, in the morning, and talking to Prince Khalid, there is zero affiliation or awareness that there was a Skill Challenge in London. The only Skill Challenge Promotions entity that is right now operational is in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia under the name of Prince Khalid bin Abdulaziz, and that's it. Anything other than that, I would go as far as saying it's fraudulent.
Fantastic. Well, I want to thank you for clearing that up, and thank you for being so open about that. And as always, it's a pleasure to speak to you.
Likewise. Thank you, James.